So welcome, everyone. As he said, my name is Brent Baum. I live in Tucson, Arizona, hence I'm wearing the state tie of Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and what else? I'm missing California, I think, also, as well. And I heard it's very hot there today. I think we set new records, so I'm glad I'm here. Although you were a tad humid, but I came from Louisiana originally, so I'm used to humidity. Anyway, welcome. I'm here to talk to you about integrating body or somatic psychology, energy psychology, and color psychology to heal and to reduce pain. So I'm a licensed addictions counselor. I do psychotherapies of various sorts, but I developed a technique as a relapse prevention technique that if we were going to stop eating, drinking, smoking, medicating, we needed to resolve our pain. And so the focus of my work originally was with trauma resolution, and I was the clinical director of Cottonwood Treatment Center in Tucson, Arizona for a number of years, their national trauma center. Then I was invited to become co-clinical director of Cottonwood Treatment Center in Tucson, Arizona in January of '94. When I moved to Tucson, was there for 7 years, and then was invited to, when I left Cottonwood and began training therapists. I was one of the primary therapists for Oklahoma City bombing when it occurred in '95, and then Flight 800 went down in New York, TWA Flight 800 in '96. Human Resources heard about my work from TWA, contacted me, and I began doing the technique, which I'll be demonstrating and kind of showing you tonight, at least through case studies, how the technique works. And began working with TWA Flight 800 senior staff, and that kind of prepped us for September the 11th. And now we're kind of in the age of trauma, if we haven't figured that out. There's always something going off. And with September the 11th, they realized if they could show you visual graphic imagery of a boundary violation, and I'm going to walk through 7 breakthroughs that led to this kind of work. I'm going to walk through the breakthroughs with you tonight. One of the things we realize, if they can show you a fragment or anything similar to what you already and still have stored in your body, your subconscious, which, by the way, in our research now is 95%. Conscious mind is at about 5%, so we have 5% with us tonight, all right? And we're going to be activating the other 95% at different moments with, hopefully, resolution for you. When that's triggered and the 95% goes active, we now know from SPECT scanners, single photon emission computed tomography scanners, I know it's a mouthful, that we go back into the same brainwave pattern and same state of physiological distress as we did at the moment of original encoding or trauma. So when the relatives used to say, put it behind you, forget about it, the past is over, you can't change the past, that's not really true. The problem is, it's not the past that's haunting us. It's how the body-mind stored the past that's the real issue. And that is quite malleable, quite changeable. What I did in my work was try to find a way to transmit a signal from the 5% conscious mind to the 95%, saying, thank you for holding on to all these aches and pains and memories, but it's 2017. I'm at the Theosophical Society. Can we please let go of some of these old, outdated memories and relationships and traumas? But the problem is, for a good 85-95% of our memories, if you don't establish proof of safety, if you don't transmit the proper signal from the conscious to the subconscious, when we see the graphic imagery on television or we see the plane flying into the building and we trigger our memories, our feelings of boundary violation, we're back in the 95% and we're back in the same memory all over again, and we're reliving. And the problem with pain and health is very simple. We have now known for 81 years that when we trigger an old, outdated memory and the trance goes active and the adrenaline goes up, your fight, flight, freeze goes active to protect you, what goes down? Our immune system, our T-cell production. We've known for 81 years. Look up, you can Google GAS, General Adaptation Syndrome, Hans Selye, 1936. When adrenaline rises and you push yourself too hard, your T-cells, thymus cell production, and your immunity go down, and we're going to get sick. It's how we're designed to show that we're overwhelmed. And you already know this. You call it your post-exam nervous breakdown, right, when you're in school. Or you are working too hard and you're pushing. I can do this. Let your mind override what your body says it can do, and the next thing you know, you're getting sick. Well, we've known this for 81 years. You overdo it mentally, you push too hard with the adrenaline, you're going to get ill. We are not allowed to keep doing that to your body without a consequence. So my work originally was, how do we transmit a signal from the conscious mind to the 95% to prove safety and stop the pain. The shock was when I developed the work and integrated these 3 psychologies, 90% of migraines went away. Any migraine sufferers in our group? Usually I have 3 to 5. Yeah, I got at least 3 here tonight. Panic attacks, don't raise your hand on that one necessarily. I don't want to start anything. Stay calm, keep breathing. I'm going to show you a couple of techniques to keep you calm. Okay. Seizure disorders. I've done 5 of those, 2 of them in the last year. When I reframed the original memories, they no longer have seizures. They weren't having seizures. They were in post-traumatic seizure disorder. So they were reliving a seizure event that may have been from a fever or from encephalopathy or some other condition. So we're going to give you cases tonight. I'm going to give you some examples. I think I have about an hour, yes, is that correct, to present this? So hang on. If you have any questions about that, there's a 20-minute YouTube video, and we're recording it tonight. So we're going to do what we can do about that, right? So number 1, you're alive in the room today because of breakthrough number 1. Psychologist from New Zealand named David Grove observed, and he was of Maori descent. The Maori culture has always believed in empowering the healer within you, which is very along the same lines as our Theosophical Society. And most mystical traditions agree. The light that you seek, the healing you seek, is to be found where? Within you, inside you. So we're going to show you how do we access. I call this kind of practical spirituality when you think about it. So, first breakthrough. You, and the Buddhists have believed there's only one mind, one consciousness. So what would you say if I told you you have the ability to freeze consciousness, to pause it whenever you're overwhelmed? In fact, you're alive in the room today because you do it so easily. People think, oh, I can't be hypnotized. I'm so resistant to hypnosis. Well, you don't realize that a trauma by definition is a self-hypnotic state, a trance state. The technical term is a psychoneurophysiological dissociation, that you actually can, in your body, mind, and nervous system, pause consciousness, freeze it for a millisecond. In fact, did you ever have the experience where you went into slow motion before the accident or injury or car accident, or you got the phone call or the bad news? How did you do that? Well, according to the quantum physicists, you're actually creating this experience right now, and each of you is creating a slightly different movie of me inside your physiology somewhere right side up. I say right side up because right now in your retinas, I'm upside down. So go figure how you did that. They don't know how you did that. The best scientists, neurologists, they really don't know how you're doing this. Although I had one gentleman say, oh, we know now because my Lexus does that. And I'm like, I think that's the little cameras on the outside of the Lexus combining to create a picture. I don't think we have little cameras floating around us, but who knows? Maybe there is a hint there. But we do know that we have the capacity when you're physically, emotionally overwhelmed. To a child bumping your head, you cry. It becomes scary. You freeze. I know because we'll get to the moment. I'm an empath. My mother was an empath. If you hit your head and I scan you and I feel a pain, I'll ask you about it. What happened to your head over here? I freaked out some young man a few months ago at Miraval, where I worked part of the time, the spa, integrated wellness spa to the northwest of Tucson. Dr. Andrew Wild was part of our integrated wellness program for about 5 years there. He used to refer his medical residents to me to watch me work when I was developing this at Cottonwood Treatment Center. But we know now that when we store and we are able to freeze consciousness, we freeze always at the millisecond before we're overwhelmed. We back up a millisecond, we take a picture, second breakthrough, because all memories are three-dimensional. Close one eye. Am I still three-dimensional to you? Yep, pretty much. Yep, I'm still 3D. It's because you can walk around. You're still oriented. So it's not your eyes doing it. Consciousness itself has a holographic property. Breakthrough number 1, you always freeze at the millisecond before you're overwhelmed. You're alive in the room today because you do it so easily and so well. You hold your breath. You get scared, I pull a gun. Therapists run amok at the Theosophical Society. Oh my goodness, You're frightened, scared, you hold your breath, freeze for a millisecond. That's why all the yogic breathing and the pranayama, walking around, breathing, taking breathing exercises, holotropic breath work, all of these things we do for breathing. If you can breathe past the barrier where you froze, because as we age, we lose lung capacity because of trauma. So if we can breathe past that and expand your lungs, sometimes we can even release the memory. But we tense up, we hold our breath. But even before that, before the physiology activates, consciousness is paused. you have the ability to freeze the movie. Remember on the old VCRs, you had stopped, got your popcorn, came back, hit play, and it backed up about 5 frames? Well, those days are over, right? It doesn't slow down and back up anymore. It's digital. It's frozen right there. So we back up a millisecond, take a picture. Breakthrough number 2, because all memories and all senses, Carl Pribram, the leading neurophysiologist, died a few years ago at 95, said all of your senses are 3-dimensional. Smell, taste, touch, hearing, sound, sight. Everything is 3D. One of the principles of holograms in physics is every fragment of a hologram contains the whole thing, which means you can take an entire traumatic event and, breakthrough number 3, somatic psychology, you have 1,000 neurons per square inch. We used to think that all your memories are in your brain. Not true. Processor. Heart is a processor. Gut is a processor. In fact, the gut's now talked about as a second brain. We found it has more neurons than your whole spinal cord. And that's why in Colorado, Washington, Oregon, they've legalized pot, marijuana. Well, when do they give cancer patients marijuana? For nausea, to calm the stomach during the nausea with chemotherapies. Well, come to find out, one of the reasons pot works is it medicates the lining of the stomach plexus and calms you down. I have clients with Crohn's, IBS, they've used pot to calm the stomach down. It also induces black sleep and stops nightmares. That's the term the kids came up with. They taught us how they use it. So children with domestic violence will use marijuana sometimes to stop the nightmares and make it go away. The drugs and foods we use are often directly related to which nerve centers hold the traumas. I'm about to put another video up on my website about that. That would be another whole 2-3 hour lecture right there. The substances and the foods. I had a client who drew which sweets she would eat when certain memories of abuse from her mother came up. I have a niece that wants me to open a treatment center based on sugar addiction. I was like, that's the whole planet right now. We're all sugar dependent. But that little butter pecan ice cream thing you have about the stomach, or the little chocolate thing, maybe it's not an accident. The foods you binge on, very powerful. So an entire traumatic event, back up a millisecond. So we don't have to, number one, we don't have to spend the second half of your life doing therapy for the first half, okay? If you did, to get you here, I'm grateful. But the truth is, that would be a cruel joke, right? Spend the second half of your life doing therapy for the first half, okay? The good news is if a trauma is a millisecond, how much courage do I need from you? A millisecond to be able to look at the scene, see where you froze, and establish safety. Because in the 95%, if that's triggered in the 95%, who's going to win? The 5% that says it's over, forget about it, or the 95% that whenever you trigger it with the SPECT scanners we know about, that you keep reliving it. You're going to have to prove to your body you're out of the event. And that was my goal. How do we prove to the body-mind that we're not still in the trance state? We're not still in the event. You don't have to change your history. We have to prove to your body you're not in it. That's what we're talking about tonight, how we combine 3 different aspects of psychologies, emergent psychologies and breakthroughs, to prove to your body that you're safe, that the bad things are over. Because if the single greatest factor contributing to the compromise of your health every day, weakening of your immune system, sabotage of your dreams and goals and your relationships, is the fact that you and I go in and out of memories. We'd really like to believe we're good listeners. The truth, I don't think anybody's going to hear my entire lecture tonight. And the reason is that we go in and out of memories. We trance, as we call it, 15 to 50 times an hour. We leave the present moment. So when I do lectures about mastering your mind to heal your body, oh, you're a good listener. Yeah, but I say grandmother or fishing, and you're like, oh, that's right, that big fish thing happened that time. Or grandmother was really sweet. And somebody says, oh, grandmother didn't like me. She liked my sibling. She didn't like me. And suddenly you're like, oh, grandmother, grandmother's here tonight. She brought the grandkids. Yeah, that's great. All right. Anyway, so, the whole thing is, what's your relationship? I say a word or a phrase, and all it takes to trigger a hologram, we said, is what? Every fragment of a hologram contains the whole thing. We now know all your senses work that way. So here's what it means. It means you can take an entire traumatic experience and reduce it to a set of neurons. It becomes the lump in your throat. Ever had one of those? Vice on your head. Weight on your shoulders. Oh, I carry the weight of the world on my shoulders. Most of you have a problem with your right neck and shoulder. Unless your mother's living with you, then it's on your left neck and shoulder. But we'll talk about that. That's a lecture I did here before, actually. One of the last ones I did was on somatic cueing. When what part of your body hurts and suggests what trauma from your history. Now, you know, the Chinese have known this for 5,000 years. The Chinese see you walking across the room and like, oh, you have a problem with your father when you're about 5 years old. And you're like, how could they possibly know that, you know? And they're right. You know, so here's a story for you. I was doubting the hologram theory. I did workshops. A woman on her deathbed funded my trainings in the city of Sendai, Japan. So I did trainings in Sendai for several years. That was like 3 to 5 years before the tsunami earthquake hit. And this was the largest city near the tsunami earthquake nuclear disaster. When it happened, we had 37 trauma therapists trained in the city to do trauma work. Go figure. But at one of my workshops, attending was the emperor's physician's daughter. And I heard she was great with what she had been trained in. I was kind of curious. And I heard she did reflexology. Have you ever had reflexology done? You know, I've not been trained in it or anything, but their belief is that all of the organs and energy systems of the body flow and connect to nerve endings in your hands and your feet. So you can stimulate those systems by massaging the feet and the hands. Now they found with NFL football players, there's a way to look at the eyes and see if they've had brain damage. So the eyes, the iridology, you can actually look at the eyes and see if something's wrong. As an licensed addictions counselor in Arizona, I can get licensed to do auricular acupuncture. So I could put needles in your ears to decrease your cravings for alcohol, cocaine, or stimulants. So all the parts of your body are supposed to flow and connect to the meridians. So anyway, I was a little skeptical, like, reflexology. You know, I did Miraval at the time, so I was like, I've had reflexology, nice little hand-foot massage. Well, in Japan, it's a little different. In Japan, for your feet, they pull out this thing that looks like a knitting needle, and they proceed to jam it into all the pressure points of your foot. And she hit one point, and I think I screamed, which I'm not sure was very polite in Japanese society, you know, but I shrieked. And through the translator, are you ready for this? Especially if you're a skeptic about holograms, she says, would you please ask him if he almost died of bronchitis when he was 2.5 years old? And I'm like, you've got to be kidding. How could she know that? She must be psychic. And she showed me a map of the foot, and she showed me the pulmonary section of the left foot, and said, when I touch this point, you jump out of your body. It's actually almost like an open wound now. So you almost died from this. You're still vulnerable. I said, yes, when I get bronchitis or respiratory things, I have to take care of it right away. She said, can I poke your rib cage? I said, after that, poke whatever you need to poke here, right? So she's poking around my rib cage. She says, yeah, you have scar tissue between these two ribs from the bronchitis when you were 2.5. She knew where to look for scar tissue from the pressure point in the foot. So I was a believer. I was like, okay, the hologram theory works. The part can be used to access the whole system. And even to this day, a Western physician will have you stick out what in order to assess you? You stick out your tongue right away when you go in. So they do a bit of that, the part. So we are holographic beings, which means you can take an entire traumatic event, store it as a lump in your throat. Now, there are 3 categories of protection. You remember the event, you remember the feeling, you just didn't know what to do with it, so you got busy. Went back to work, took care of the kids, dealt with the estate, you know, buried the dog, whatever we had to do. You deal with it, kind of push it aside, but you don't go back to resolve it. You forgot or didn't know what to do with it. That's what I'm here to show you. Second category protection, you store the icon, but when you go to your father's funeral, you're not crying. You're like, something's wrong with me. Did I not love him? Am I missing something? Why am I not? I know this is a big deal, but I don't have any feelings. So you know the event, but you don't access the feelings. You're protected. You're in shock. A lot of people come to our spa like Miraval in the north, in the southwest, and do some body work or somatic work, and suddenly they're crying for 3 days. Suddenly you take a vacation, like I went on vacation to relax. Why am I crying for 3 days? Well, you've been so busy and so stressed out, you have not had a chance to debrief. So the shock subsides, and suddenly your feelings are coming up. So second category of protection, we know the event, we repress the feelings. Third category, you can imagine, both the feelings and the event go completely into the subconscious. We call this traumatic amnesia or delayed recall. And within seconds of the event, you have no memory of it ever happening. There's only one problem, and this is why the body psychology must come in. Bessel van der Kolk, one of our top PTSD guys in the country, has a new book out called The Body Keeps the Score, which is interesting because one of the first books that came out as a bestseller was The Body Remembers. Then there was a bestseller, The Body Always Remembers. Then we have the new bestseller, which is The Body keeps the score, because even if you don't remember and oh yeah, we did drop you off the balcony onto your head when you were 2. Well, that memory is not going to be there. You disrupted the neurotransmission. It is not there. You're not going to have that. But if I scan you and my hand hurts, oh wow, we need to reframe this. The good news is we can reframe memories you don't remember, but they just reported to you. Because the problem is, what Bessel van der Kolk said is very true. The body does keep the score. It remembers everything. And when I scan you, if my hand hurts, like the young man I asked some time ago, what happened to your head? Oh, I checked with my mother. I couldn't remember anything. She says, I fell off a grocery cart when I was 2, cut my head open, had to have stitches. He couldn't believe it. He had no memory of the event. So even if you don't remember, the body always remembers. So we have that part. So first, we freeze for a millisecond. Second, all memories are holograms, so we can store it. Huge entire traumatic event becomes the lump in your throat, the knot in your stomach, the vice in your head. There is not a part of your body I have not worked with, I assure you. I've done 150,000 memories with people, and I'm an empath, so usually I feel something of what you're feeling. I can tell when it comes up, I can tell when it's gone. Discovered that around 1992, working on a client. She went into a major abuse memory. I felt physical pain come up. When she reframed it, I felt it leave. I eventually realized with the energy part that I was actually doing the same thing with people's memories that my mother used to do with us when we were growing up. What I mean by that is my mother was what we would call an empath. She could feel when we were in car accidents and injuries. I was on the way to college. I was in a car accident, didn't want to worry her, called her 3 hours later. She's like, yes, I know it happened at 3:23. So she was already worrying for 3 hours. She wrote the time down. My sister miscarried. My mother ran down the street. My sister was leaving for the hospital. My mother already knew. My sister hadn't called her. My brother broke his ankle at the Veterans Home. My mother called the Veterans Home and said, what just happened to my son, Jerry? They're like, who called you? They're not supposed to call until we have x-rays. The ambulance is on the way, which means 3 minutes usually. And she beat the ambulance to the building to take him for the x-rays. And it was just his ankle, but she felt it when it happened. She was very good about that. When she died in 1983, I was in graduate school in Italy, in Rome, Italy, and I sat up in bed the moment she died in Louisiana. And I felt it the moment she died. And so I didn't realize it for 9 years, almost a decade later, that when people went into memory, I could feel the pain come up. And when they reframed it using a safe signal, which we'll talk about in a moment, I could feel it leave. So I used that to develop the technique 10 years before scientists proved, they've proven it now, your brain doesn't know the difference between the original and the memory of the event. If it's intact and it comes up in your body, you are in fact reliving the same brainwave pattern and same state of tension. That's why our vets are dying almost 1 a day nowadays. We're doing 8 vets research QEEGs in October here in Naperville, nearby. I'll be back doing training in Naperville in July here, as a matter of fact. We have information for you if you're interested in that. Talk to our information table here afterwards too. But I come here 5 times a year. Somebody came to Miraval years ago, did 3 sessions with me. I met with her for lunch today. Had remission of most of her fibromyalgia symptoms, which is a variety of 13 different variables. So when you reframe memories, you drop the adrenals down. The Mayo Clinic used to send me their lupus patients and said, please reframe her memories with her. When she goes into flashbacks, her adrenals go up, her T cells go down, the lupus medication is no longer effective, we can't treat it. But if you can do that technique you do and drop the adrenals down, cause her to relax, then her T cells go up, the lupus medication is sufficient. Otherwise, it's too much medication when she drops down, and we can't regulate it unless you resolve the memories, the flashbacks. So they used to send patients to us at the treatment center, and they knew the impact of trauma on your health and autoimmune disorders. So we freeze for a millisecond. We store it as a hologram, a fragment in the body. Okay? We store it anywhere. You can store it where you're slapped, hit, hurt, injured. There's not a part of your body that can't store memory. So when things start to ache, you might want to check it out. I'll show you a little focusing technique to check it out. Also, computer, we store it somatically. We said anywhere in the body. The other piece, though, the body part wasn't enough. We had to add the energy psychology. That's where my mother came into a little bit. But you know this already. Even if you lose the organ or the limb, if memories are stored in a hologram-like manner and the memory is intact somewhere else in the system, when it's triggered, what hurts? The arm or the limb, even if it's not there anymore. We call that phantom limb pain, or holonomic memory is the technical term. It acts like a hologram, presents like a hologram, but the pain isn't stored equally throughout your body. It's still site-specific. Technical term is holonomic memory. And they developed a device to help you grow new neural pathways. They create a box that they place over the missing arm, which actually shows you an image of the arm that's being photographed or pictured here. And when you flex this arm, this one flexes, looks like it's flexing, like it's reversed. And if you do that for 3 20-minute intervals a day, several times for a couple of weeks, after a while your pain goes away because your body believes your arm is back, that the pain has gone away. So in a way, we do the same thing with the technique. We're not going to change your history, but we do need to transmit a signal to show that you're safe, and that you're not in the pain scene any longer. And we've learned how to do that. I'll get to that in a moment. So the fourth part was energy psychology. We needed something more. We needed to talk to both the cells and meridians of your body, and that's where the fifth psychology came in. What is your first language for safety as a child outside the womb? Do you know what that language is? It's not words. You don't get the words right away. The color of mommy's eyes, the color of her hair, her face, the color of daddy's eyes. Color is your first language outside the womb. Visual and felt, we associate colors. And so the color of mommy's eyes, the color of her hair. Color is an infinite language. It's not like words. It's not finite. You have an infinite number of greens and blues and reds and grays and oranges. Infinite continuum. Plus, one of the things I did in these various careers I've had is I did archaeology in Israel from 1979 to 1992. In the summer of 1984, I did a research project with NASA studying thermal scanners and how to fly remote sensing scanners over the soil of Israel, thermal infrared scanners, and locate all the archaeological sites, because natural objects change temperature during the day, man-made objects do not. That's how they found some of the Mayan Aztec cities beneath the rainforest, because they didn't change temperature when the foliage did. They stayed like blues and purples, very dark colors. And so they found all these hidden cities. Well, one thing we learned from that research is that you, with your 7-color projection system right now, scanning, receiving, energy transmitting, you with your 7-color projection system are creating, in a sense, you're not a 4-color TV. You're like a 7-color TV, probably plus. And they don't know how you're doing it, but you're creating a 3-dimensional, holographic, full-color, digital movie of me right now, right side up, somewhere inside your physiology. So thank you for letting me in. That's very kind of you. So one of the things that happens when we're overwhelmed is we pause that scene, we take a picture, but the colors that you are seeing from your position, your seat, your personal history, depending on how open or closed these transmission centers are, your colors are a little different from my colors. They're not quite the same. So, to make a long story short, the way this works is if you have a child, we went to their first language, simple, not complicated. Went to the child's first language for safety. If you have a child draw a picture of physical or sexual abuse, and you already know a lot about color frequency, what are the 2 crayons they will always go for sexual abuse?
Red, black.
And black. Thank you. Red and black. Exactly. No love, no light, no safety. Black, minimal, anger, violence. Red. Now, black can be calm, elegant, absolute. Red is power, passion, energy. Can be good. Imperial colors of China and Japan. But when drawn for trauma, no love, no light, no safety, black. On the energy side, what's the densest, heaviest energy in the universe? Thought I heard it. Black hole, the absence of all, love, light, nurturing. Take away all the colors, and you get heavy. Take away safety, nurturing. Give an anorexic, no love, no approval, perfectionistic parent. They'll say, I weigh 3,000 pounds. I say, no, I'm sorry, you weigh 82 pounds and your bones are sticking out of your face. We can actually see, this is not good. No, I weigh 3,000 pounds and I'm obese. Okay, there's a problem here. They're reporting the weight of the energy body as though it's their physical body. And they will take that body and put it on a treadmill, and it's losing weight and in danger of death. They're energy sensitive. They're emotionally sensitive. The mistake is you have 2 bodies. One is physical, one is energetic and emotional. Some people believe we're a light being occupying a physical body. Interesting idea. But I will say this can only weigh a couple of thousand pounds before it dies. The emotional body has unlimited weight perception. I weigh the size of the earth. I'm the size of the moon, the planet. The abandonment I have is the size of a huge black hole. And when I scanned them empathically, it was true. I was like, wow, but your weight isn't this kind of weight. You have a singularity. You have a trauma in your relationship center. Yeah, my mother was a perfectionist. I was never pretty enough, smart enough, good enough. No wonder you feel heavy. It's a huge, dense, heavy energy. It's not physical, though. But the child mind doesn't know that. The child mind thinks it's physical and tries to exercise it. At Miraval, where I work, I used to have an anorexic that would come, and she'd run 25 miles a day, every day. She ran a marathon a day. Never gained a pound. Tiny little woman on the elliptical treadmill for hours. Never gained a pound. But it didn't heal the issue, because the issue wasn't a physical issue. The issue had to do with emotional trauma. And when you do this kind of work, you'll always feel lighter, ridiculously lighter, because our real weight challenge isn't in our physical body. In fact, I did a chapter in my new book called You're Dieting the Wrong Body, where I say you can do all the exercising you want, but when your relatives show up and you feel responsible and you start eating and taking it all on because you got to eat for the family, you eat for the tribe, you know that when the family's stressed, you can't lose weight because you're taking them all in your energy field. You might be the size of Naperville or, Wheaton kind of thing, I feel huge, I feel heavy, I can't lose weight. One of the therapists at Miraval told me that. I need to do your technique. I can't lose weight. When the family's all stressed, I cannot lose weight. When they're all doing fine, suddenly I'm losing weight. It's great. Yeah, because your body says, I'm not eating for the whole clan. Your energy field doesn't realize that. You have a lot of people in your energy field right now. We take a lot of people on, so we can learn to release that. Okay, so we needed a language. So fifth breakthrough, color psychology, color frequency. The colors you see are not my colors. The child knows that. So if you have them draw a picture of physical or sexual abuse, they'll go to blacks and reds. Have them redraw the picture, they go to their bright nurturing colors from their history, and they'll vary per culture. If you have them then move a color or feeling, what do we say? Every fragment of a hologram contains the whole thing. So a color or feeling from the safe scene moved through the part of the body holding the original icon of tension, the red and black. Well, in physics, when you take red and black and you add all the missing colors, what do you get? White light. We're not here to change your history. We're here to show you how to prove to your body you're not still in your history. And when you do that, you stop reliving the trance from the history. You simply have to prove to your body you're not still in the danger place. You're not in the old relationship. You're not in the car accident. So here's an example. Had a woman who came up to me after the end of a lecture at Cottonwood one year, about 96, said, I'm thinking about leaving treatment. I've been here for 2 days. I have nerve damage in my legs from trauma. She showed me a file this thick, proving all kinds of weird tests I've never seen before, proving nerve damage. And she said, I'm thinking about leaving treatment. She said, because they want to keep me here 30 days, charging me about $1,000 a day, teaching me all about addictions, and then send me home with a new narcotic. She's like, what's the point? I'm going to be addicted to that. There are no non-addictive narcotics. She said, what's going to happen to me? So I said, okay, what's your question? She said, you said something I've never heard before. You said that if the pain is from a trauma scene, and you have that T-1, that millisecond of freezing, she said, I know the scene. It was horrible. And there's a lot of pain in it. She says, then if we resolve the post-traumatic stress, the 95% emotional content, then all I would be left with would be the physical damage, nerve damage. I said, I make no promises. Your condition could be that it's 100% nerve pain, nerve damage. I don't know. I said, but yes, in pain centers, what we found, if we can resolve the post-traumatic stress part, when you're getting stressed about a migraine or a headache, what happens? It gets worse. It worsens. Okay? So I said, if we can resolve the post-traumatic stress part of this, there's a good chance we could at least reduce it. She says, that would be good. Then I wouldn't need the meds as often. I'll stay another day. So she got an order from her psychiatrist, came into the office the next day, sat down in the chair, and so I began the technique with her. I said, when you feel your pain, and I'm going to show you the technique, the level 1, there are 2 kinds of icons we store under stress, 2 kinds of traumas. Level 1 is a single moment. Level 2 is a repeated pattern. Growing up with an alcoholic parent, emotionally unavailable parent, depressed, bipolar, narcissistic parent. We're in the age of narcissism right now. You haven't figured that one out. Personality disorders, things of that sort. We may have been triggered recently. So personality disorders, first marriage, first boyfriend, first boss, employer, organization oppresses you over time, level 2. Having an addiction or a chronic physical, mental, emotional pain condition, level 2. Having a parent, a sibling, a spouse, or a child with an ongoing condition can be level 2 trauma to you as well. So I'll show you the level 2 technique after I show you the level 1 here. So level 1, single scene. So she came up to me, this is a single scene, turned out to be a single moment trauma where her pain came from. Single millisecond. Very powerful. So she came up to me and I said, she sat down in the chair, I said, when you think of the accident, where do you feel your pain? Because all events occurred while you're in your body. So there's always going to be a positive or negative icon of your good and bad memories somewhere holographically stored in your favorite smell, your favorite music. But the negative, when you think about the car accident, where you feel your pain? She said, my legs. Inside or outside? 13 trillion brain cells go to work, and your body scans yourself in about 3 seconds. She said both, inside and out. Because a lot of trauma is on the outside, impact to the head. Does it have a shape? Bless you. Shape, size, or color? Big black boulders in my legs. Okay. Do they have a weight, temperature, or texture? 9 questions. Where in your body? Inside, outside. Shape, size, color. Weight, temperature, texture. Oh, cold and heavy. Anything else about them? 9th question. Anything else? Yeah, they ache. They throb. If you can sketch it and draw your pain as an object, it's usually an icon of memory. Question that triggers it, how young might you be when you first feel big black boulders in your legs like this? She said, oh, I'm 7. The way memory comes up is age, location, event, and then the feeling that made you freeze. I'm 7. Can you see where you are? Yes, I'm lying by the interstate. We've been in that accident. Like, okay, most people freeze before impact, but there's a 20-30% of traumas. That's how the caregivers handle it or mishandle it. So I was like, okay, well, let's see what's up. So I use, this is called body-centered, client-centered therapy or psychotherapy. The genius is you. You know when you froze, you know why you froze, you know the details, you know the locations, the icons, you even know the missing colors, frequencies, which I'll show you in a moment. You're the genius when it comes to your history. So I said, okay, you're 7, you're lying by the interstate. What happens then? My legs are crushed and I can't move to get help. Okay, what happens then? What I'm listening for is the feeling statement that says she's overwhelmed and feels threatened. So let's listen. What happens then? She said, everyone is unconscious but me. It's like, ooh, this is bad. She's conscious, but her legs are crushed. She can't move without horrible pain. Everyone is unconscious but her. What happens next? I thought she'd give me a pain statement. She said, cars are passing by. What happens when cars are passing by? No one's stopping to help us. What happens then? I'm afraid we're all going to die. You hear it? So she feels responsible. Her legs are in terrible pain. Her body takes a picture. It's a hologram. It goes to the primary pain site, which is her legs, and then adrenaline hits, and she says, it gets fuzzy after that. I don't remember much. She's chemically protected. That's why we go into shock and numb out. So the trauma is this millisecond where she froze. So what I developed that was different was I said, if you could go back and change this scene, what would you like to see happen? Oh, that's easy. She said, I'd have somebody get on the brick and call for help. You remember the old mobile phones? Oh, yeah. They actually looked and felt like a brick. She said, get on the brick and call for help. Never forget that one. Like, get on the brick. I was like, okay. What happens then? People arrive sooner. Okay, let's create an image. Now, if you can show your subconscious, you can create safety and move the safe feeling through the body, it will release the trance state. I know because that's the advantage of the empathy, is I felt it when they started doing it. I could feel it leave your body. And then you felt it leave your body. We felt the same thing. Okay. So I said, okay, if you could change it. Oh, they get on the brick and call for help. What happens then? They're going to rush us to the hospital. Take all the time you need to picture everyone safe in the hospital. Can you picture that? Yes. She gave it about a minute. How does everyone look? Pretty good, but my 7-year-old self's legs are still hurting. Now, she's telling me the trance is incomplete. Now, understand, except for brain cells, corneas, heart, and lung cells, you have a new body every 7 years. Her legs were new several 7-year cycles ago. She should no longer even be in pain if she healed up. So there's a good chance the pain is coming from a trance state. But So this 7-year-old is a holographic projection with some kind of leg pain. So if I go to the expert to heal it, what is the infinite language we use to heal pain? Color. So what did I ask her? When I get stuck, I go to the expert. What color would you send your 7-year-old self to take away her leg pain? She said, when you said that, and usually with the eyes closed, I'll get to breakthrough number 6 in a moment, hand on your back, there's a way to transmit enhanced access to memory to another person. Bessel van der Kolk was talking with me about this when we were interrupted, actually. But if you place, and you've all done it, when a friend is upset, a loved one is upset, where do you place your hand to calm them? Right there at the top of the shoulders, where a mother puts her hand on an infant's neck and spine, C7. When I did that in 1994, when I started scanning the patients at the treatment center, so a woman had fallen on ice, I noticed the spot, put my hand on C7. Half of my clients went into what looked like rapid eye movement, but that only occurs when you're sleeping. This was something else. We measured it in Naperville last October. It induces you go from beta, anxiety, to alpha, you relax, into deep theta or deep delta, which is bridging to the subconscious. In transcendental meditation, other kinds of meditation techniques, you get vivid imagery sometimes, but you're in alpha, you're relaxed. So you can actually transmit a signal, talk to the memory without reliving. We don't have to relive. We measured it. And we're getting consistent results with alpha theta, in the clients we're working on, and they're improving. So when you do that, you make them feel safe, you ground them in a minute. For a second, you become their mommy, kind of thing. They're safe, they're grounded, and then they feel safe to access memory. So I had my hand at C7, and I said, if you could picture safety. Oh, I sent her green. How does she look now? She looks great. Is there anything else she needs? She said, yeah, strawberry swirl ice cream. Okay, well, let's give her some ice cream. She had her tonsils out and loved the ice cream experience. So my mind's saying, I hope we're not creating strawberry swirl ice cream dependency, that when your legs hurt, you want ice cream. But anyway, so she moved her ice cream through she moved the colors through her body, okay? And I said, is there anything else she needs? No. What color frame? Green and gold. I'll still remember the final colors of her picture. Green and gold. She moved it through her body, through her legs. As she did that, I was linked at C7. So I felt pain waves coming out the back, out the front. The front of your body I never touch when I train therapists. As of this week, I have 56 healthcare professionals trained, certified in the technique. I'm training anesthesiologists, psychiatrists, social workers, marriage and family therapists, parents, educators. I'll train anyone to do what I do. We should all be doing it with each other and our partners. But anyway, so I was linked with C7. Once I found that, I felt the pain waves leaving, and in about 3 minutes, the pain was gone. Couldn't feel anything. I waited a couple of minutes, and I said, how are your legs doing? She said, fine. I said, 0 to 10, what's your pain level? She said, 0. I was like, oh, she must not feel it till she moves. Get up and walk around. She gets up, starts walking around. I said, 0 to 10, what's your pain level? She said, 0. So I got confused. I was like, well, it must be intermittent nerve damage, irregular intervals. I said, how long has it been since you had no pain in your legs? She said, 37 years. And you could see her getting upset. I said, you mean you've never been without pain until now? She said, no. And then I told her a story. First cancer patient I worked on, the pain would move around her body, which will be breakthrough number 7 in a moment. But the pain would move around her body, show us a series of memories, and she'd be pain-free for 2 or 3 days. But she had a metastatic environmental toxin in her system that caused the cancer, and I could not touch that piece. She played near a waste dump as a child and got poisoned. I couldn't undo that part. But every time she did her regular memory work, her adrenals went down, endorphins and kephalins released. She was pain-free for several days and did really, really well. And so I said, if after 2 or 3 days in your legs, your pain comes back, there may be nerve damage, or we might have more memories. I'll go for more memories first. But I said, if your pain never comes back in your legs, it means that all of the pain that you were given narcotics for the last 37 years was from what part of the brain? The 95% subconscious, and was an active trance state that never subsided. And guess what? Her pain never came back in her legs. I deal with people like this almost every week. The most dramatic case in the Purple Book originally that I wrote about was a woman operated on at Johns Hopkins, and they severed the nerves to her kidneys after the 4th failure. They did a 5th surgery to stop her kidney pain, permanently numbing her left kidney region. And 3.5 months to the day, 100 days later, what happened? the pain came back. Now, from what we're talking about today, why would the pain come back? What if the body they operated on is the wrong body? Know what I mean by that? Except for brain, cornea, heart, and lung. You have a new body every 7 years. It should have healed itself. But what do we say about holographic memory? If the trance is intact, I'm training physicians, doctors with this now. Actually, there's an anesthesiologist at Mercy Hospital that started this on a woman he saw in distress with preeclampsia, and her blood pressure started dropping. There's never been a documented case of preeclampsia reversal. But because they had started titrating her on a drug already, off a drug, it's not a clean study. We can't publish it yet. So he's trying to get to them sooner before they use the drugs. If it's memory-based, we have impact, especially if it's trauma-based. So she ran the colors through her body. And guess what happened? She never had pain in her legs again. But the woman with the kidney pain where they severed the nerves, 100 days later, pain came back full force. Flew back, poke her with needles. Do you feel this? No. 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 We've done our job. Your current body cannot have pain in your kidney region. Are you in pain? Yes. We're sorry. We don't know what's wrong with you. So then she came back to me, and I knew there was trauma, but I took an assessment. She had no memories, and I couldn't encourage her to do a session without some idea what she wanted to work on. And in those days, I could probably have pushed a little better nowadays. If I feel it, I would have pressured you and say, there's something here. I can try to pick it up, but I don't bring up the empathy thing. People think it's a little strange. I'd prefer you come up with your memory first. If at all possible, empower you to remember it. I'm not going to suggest anything. But if my hand is going crazy over your head, I'm going to say, what happened to your head up here? I will ask you, and you will remember. Usually 95% of the time they remember. Otherwise, they call their family and they remember the rest of the time. But I've rarely been wrong with my hands, with anything I've scanned. And so she came back to me after the fifth surgery, said, you're not going to believe this. They severed the nerves to my kidneys and the pain came back. So I did a session with her finally. She was open to it. She was in the medical field. I did a session with her. In that session, we just worked on the medical trauma, but she called me 2 nights later and said, you're not going to believe this, which I actually did. Says, but I'm having active flashbacks of sexual abuse from a family member, and during the abuse, he bruised my left kidney. And that was causing the pain. Also, remember I said when my mother died, I felt it from Italy? Anger, love, and hatred are powerful relational bridges. They transcend time and space, which is why we're presenting it here at the Esophageal Society. We have frameworks of reference spiritually to grasp this now. My second book was called Living as Light, The Awakening of Mystical Consciousness. You clear your body, you clear the red and black dense energies of trauma, and you will be more empathic. We as a species are becoming empaths. Probably 30 to 40% of the clients I work with at Miraval now are empaths that walk in and need clearing. And our trauma is escalating. You haven't figured that one out. Politically and otherwise, we're being triggered. The only person that's going to watch out for you with the media nowadays is who? Yourself. And Dr. Andrew Weil says the same thing. Please put as much good news into your body, which is a challenge. Put as much good news in as you do bad, or you're going to be in a state of imbalance. So we want to clear that piece. But anyway, so backing up, we want to be able to clear the body of these memories and what's going on with them. So, running the colors, so she came back, did a session, called me. So within 24 hours, who calls her on the phone and leaves a message on her answering machine? Perpetrator calls and leaves a message, and for the first time since childhood, use the nickname he used with her when he abused her as a child. So how do you trigger that and figure that access? Are we connected to people through trauma, through love? Positive or negatively, we access. So, tremendously powerful. So our mind, our bodies. So we store memories like icons on the computer. We store them 3-dimensionally in the body. The last piece is in 1996, I was working on the cancer patient, and the pain in her body started moving around, and there was a sequence to the memories. And as we did that and we reframed the memories, her pain then went away and would be gone, like I said, for a couple of days. We called it memory mapping. I worked on a gentleman. I scanned a gentleman who was the former president of the Florida Bar Association. He passed away a few years ago. Came to Miraval like 15 years ago. I'm Miraval's longest surviving independent contractor out there. Anyway, scanned him, and I said, oh, tell me about the male relationship you're having, the problem you're having with somebody with your right rotator cuff. He's like, I've had $250,000 of therapies on this right shoulder. They're getting ready to operate on it. And you're telling me this memory says that? I think, well, yeah, there's something here. So we worked, and he says, I know who that is. So we went on 5 memories. By the 5th memory, the pain was gone. And needless to say, he was a little nonplussed. He's like, you mean I spent all this money on these, and they're getting ready to do surgery on my shoulder, and it's a bunch of memories, and some guy waves his hand over my shoulder. I run some colors through it, and the pain is gone. I was like, yeah, memory is that powerful. A state of consciousness where you're abused or hurt, when we store it, it traps the pain intact. So this is about you being able to reframe and heal yourself and transmit proof of safety to your body. Can you do it on yourself? Absolutely. So I'll do 2 things and then we'll stop. I'll ask questions for a while. I had a cyst in my ear. I said, well, it's a cyst. It's not life-threatening. Don't worry about it. I said, no, it might actually be a memory. So I said, you do it on everybody else. Why don't you check it? So I said, okay, fine. So I did it out loud to slow myself down because I can talk a little fast sometimes, right? So I said, okay, when I feel the pain, where do I feel it? In my ear. And if you have a pain right now, you might want to do it on yourself. So I said, okay, is it inside or outside? It's both. It's inside pushing out. Does it have a shape, size, or color? Yeah, it's like a little marble. Color, temperature, texture, red and black, a little cool. Anything else about it? No, but it just hurts sometimes. When you have a pain statement, that's an icon of memory usually. It hurts. How young might I be when I first feel this? Heard the number 10. I was like, okay, 10. Where are you? Altar boy meeting. I was like, well, I was raised Catholic. I was an altar boy. So I was like, okay, I'm at the altar boy meeting. What happens then? And suddenly it came flooding back. Huey Moranto used to sit behind me and pluck me on the ear in class. And I was like, oh, this is Huey Moranto at the altar boy meeting. He kept doing it repeatedly. And finally, I flew out of the desk and started strangling him in the front of the Monsignor, who looked like, I was a tiny little kid, so it was kind of ridiculous. Monsignor looked kind of like Herman Munster, going, what's going on over here? And I don't remember much after that. But he never touched the ear again, but the ear was already traumatized. The ear had been plucked, dozens, if not hundreds of times. So I was like, okay, if I could change this scene, what would I like to see happen? Well, his father had some anger issues and perhaps kind of a drinking issue at one time, bless you. And I said I'd give him a sober dad who wouldn't pick on Huey. And we had a mutual friend, Frog, that was his nickname, okay, Barney. So we'd picture all of us playing together, and we get along really well. And I said, what color frame do I see around that? All of us getting along, no bullying, no ear plucking. I saw yellow and green, my yellow and green. Now, instead of saying, please give me the exact electromagnetic emotional frequencies that will correct this ego-centered trance state that was encoded at the moment of overwhelm, what I said was, what colors do I see around the happy picture, right? Of playing together. Real simple. What colors do you see? Because every fragment of a hologram, you could smell it. You could hear it. You could see it. You can use any of your senses to transmit safety, but please transmit safety to your body. Boost your immune systems. What colors? Yellow and green. Moved it through my ear. In 3 days, it was shrinking. By the 5th day, it was pretty much gone. If you don't believe me, you can come poke my scar tissue afterwards. But the truth is, it went away and never came back. I've had women do the same thing with a lump in their breast. An artist who didn't have time to work with me. But the colors you see for your memories are not my colors. You can use it on yourself. You can use it to clear your memories. When I did that, it shrunk, so not too much. So let me do two last techniques. We're going to run out of time, and then I'll take questions from you. Close your eyes for a moment. I want you to help you find your personal frequency for safety. This is kind of a big deal. I've actually had people come out of flashbacks and calm down and stop destroying the detox room at a facility using their color. So, your colors are not my colors. Take yourself to a beautiful place in nature. It can be real or imaginary. If you have a lot of trouble, then use the room here today, or use the grounds at the Theosophical Society. But picture a real or imaginary place. Some people don't like nature. They like their bedroom or their house. But picture a real place, somewhere in nature, preferably. What's your favorite color in that scene? Now, the way this works is anything. That's how children learn vocabulary words. 50 to 52 repetitions imprints in the subconscious. That's how affirmations work. Won't always resolve the trauma, but it will imprint in your subconscious. So I want you to do 50 to 52 breaths of that color over the next few days. The leading anesthesiologist in the country before you go into surgery now is saying, picture a color, Start moving your color, breathe your color through your body before you go under anesthesia. As soon as you're coming out, move that color. What I add is make it your safe place color. Start breathing that through your body. You'll come out with fewer side effects, come out of anesthesia much more gently. You'll heal faster. You'll feel a lot calmer because you're not in distress. Adrenals will go down faster. So once you've done it 50 to 100 times, that safe place is yours. Now, the other technique for level 2 pattern trauma, I'll show you a quick one and a little weight loss technique. If you can picture piling up outside of yourself all of the stress you've had for the last 3 to 6 months. Like I said, sometimes you also have post-traumatic election disorder here. But, pile all your worries and your stress. If you're freaking out, pile it all up outside. If not, we've all been overwhelmed by media, chaos. Pile it up outside of you. And you need to do this at least weekly, sometimes after a bad day at work or with the kids. Pile it up outside of you. How big is the pile? If you put it at a safe distance, it can get really huge if you get honest about that. So pile up all your stress and tension at a safe distance. Ask the pile to show you who all's contributing to it. Pile up in front of those persons, systems, institutions, the family members, kids, loved ones, government, people around you that are stressing you out. Pile up in front of them what's theirs. This is actually a visual form of the Serenity Prayer. What you can't change, put in front of you at a safe distance. Pile up in front of them what's theirs. Now, be honest about that. You tried to fix it. If you're, the codependent, hero, caregiver, you try to fix everybody, give it up. If you keep doing it past a certain point, you're enabling and they will rebel. They will get worse. So pile up in front of them what's really their stuff. Now, let's be nice. Let's ask their angels, their guides, their higher self to help them heal when they're ready. Although I had one woman say one time, I don't think my ex-husband had one of those. So you never know. But pile up in front of them, their higher self, their stuff. Ask God, their angels, whatever you believe in. I'm okay with that. To help them heal when they're ready. Because I believe we all heal in order to get home, to kind of get back to the one mind here, to one consciousness, to get back to unity. And so pile up in front of them what's theirs. Now, if you do that and let that go, do a first step, kind of let it go, but you can't change. How much of the pile is left that's actually yours? Now, I'll show you one little extra trick. If you're an emotional eater, how much food do you need to eat if you're only eating for the little pile that's left? Picture your body changing over the next 3 months, 6 months, a year, gradually, eating only for what belongs to you emotionally. As emotional eaters, we eat for everybody's stuff. In fact, the subconscious panics and says, oh my gosh, there's so many traumas. I better eat for the size of, Wheaton or Naperville. Okay, so eat for the size of your body, your family, eat for the size of your issues. Picture it changing. Don't be surprised if by tomorrow you lost half your appetite. I lost it 2 years ago. I forget to eat some days. I eat like 1 meal a day, sometimes 2. And the weird part is my weight doesn't change that much. I'm already in protection mode. I'm fine. So eat for the size of your energy field. So let's give all that back. If we give all that stuff back, and eat for what's ours. Picture your body changing 3 months. What colors do you see around your updated body? I want you to breathe that color through your body 50 times for the next few days. Updated body image. I'm eating for me, not for the entire planet, not for the whole family. And then don't be surprised if your appetite, certain foods are gone, weight changes. When you exercise, you see the results. I think my thyroid sped up and my appetite dropped off. And the binge foods were mostly gone. Eat for what's yours. Okay? So now, if we give everybody back their stuff, the little pile that's left, is that more manageable for you? If you're just eating for you? Yes. What colors do you move through your body? What color? That's saying God, the universe, never gives you more than you could handle. If you're only eating for you and your body, what colors come to you to release what isn't yours and help you manage what is? Can you see what beautiful colors come to you? The bottom line, spiritually, is that you know what perfect love is. There's not a human being I've ever worked with that doesn't know they're missing colors. What does that mean? That even though we trance 15 to 50 times an hour, no parent on the earth could give uninterrupted, unconditional love. We desire to. But we all have our traumas. We trance 15 to 50 times an hour. We'd love to give unconditional love to everyone all the time. We just can't do it based on our trauma histories. but we desire to, which also means that if you can come up with all your missing colors, there is some part of you that knows all the colors, that knows what white light is. So breathe your safe color once more through your body. You can open your eyes when you're ready, but understand there's a part of you connected to source, to white light. You know all the colors. And for a given memory, you can find the missing colors and move that through your body. So when I brought together the body-centered psychology, the somatic, brought in the energy, added the color, I'm like, wow, we have a pretty comprehensive picture. We can actually prove to your body you're not in the past. You don't have to keep reliving it over and over again. It's not about changing history. In a way, it's kind of a little trick. If you can create a safe image and run it through your body says, oh, look, then we must not be in the car accident. And that woman's leg pain stopped because after 37 years, she proved to her leg she wasn't lying by the interstate. You understand? That's the lie. People say, oh, you're playing with memory. We're not playing with memory. We're trying to show you've been in a delusion since it happened in the 95%. You never left the trauma scene. You never left the old relationship. You never left the car accident. That's why our vets are dying. They're not leaving Iraq and Afghanistan. They're still in the scenes. And we haven't been getting them out. We don't need to change your history. We need to prove to the body you're not still trapped in the history. And when we do that gently and effectively, the nightmares stop. Nightmares are holograms too. Change your nightmare. You can do that fairly easily. They're all holograms. I talk about that in my work. Okay? So it's hopeful, isn't it? Exciting. We can do this.
You talked about the technique of putting your hand on the C7
C7? Mm-hmm.
And you said it was like you become their mother. Mm-hmm. Suppose that person really had a very abusive relationship.
You don't have to touch. It's strictly an option if you ask them if they're comfortable with that. I only had 2 people in the 25, almost 30,000 people I've worked with who didn't want me to touch. One of them because I looked like the perpetrator. But when he saw me do it in a group on other people, he's like, oh, you can put my hand there. Mm-hmm. And another girl who said, I don't want you to touch me. You know, I'm a witch and you're going to take my energy. And she saw me work on other people. She says, it's okay. You're a good witch. It's all right. Fine. I just laughed. I'll say, whatever label you want to do, it's fine. But really, we all have done the energy part with our hands when our friends are upset. We kind of intuitively know to do that. You feel heat. And the clearer you become with clearing your own traumas, the more light we bring to the transaction. So when I get near people, I feel more now than I used to. And every year it goes up a little bit. So like sitting on the airplane on the way here, the girl next to me had a stomach problem. But I didn't interrupt her to ask about that. It's kind of intrusive, but I'm like, she's got a real stomach issue. It's like going on, but I can clear it. So you learned it. We have to take better. The reason the latest book is called Surviving Trauma School Earth is that with this much overstimulation with reality TV, we really have to take better care of ourselves. You've got to meditate. If only walk through nature at the Theosophical Society and breathe in all the colors you're attracted to. The colors you're drawn to. There's a chapter in my new book called You're Wearing Your Solution. Because 50% of the time when you come in, even before I scan you, before I work with you in a session, 50% of the time you're going to walk into my office wearing the color you will reframe your worst traumatic memory with. You're wearing the solution before you get in. Here in Chicago, I'm consulting with the guy who's doing the master plan for reconstruction of VA hospitals. And he's advising, we're consulting with each other about the colors they should be painting the new VA hospitals and the vet treatment centers to keep them safe and calm during treatment. So we're talking about that.
Are you a Reiki practicer?
You know, Reiki is another word for it. I was trained in healing touch originally. And I am a licensed addictions counselor. I'm not a nurse. I wasn't healthcare. Actually, I was a Catholic priest. Forgot to mention that. If you're a recovering Catholic, keep breathing. You'll be okay. If you were raised Jewish, great-grandfather was Jewish, got kicked by a horse, died from the concussion when I ran into the rabbi. He's like, if it wasn't for the horse and the trauma, you'd have been a rabbi instead of a priest. So you never quite know about that. But yes, I was a Catholic priest. I was Jesuit trained. And so when my hands went active in 92, and I do have some limited healing ability also from my uncle on my mother's side, I do warts, fever, blisters, some reduced shingles impacts. I do viruses fairly well. And so when that activated, I did take some training. So I did healing touch first. And they've done some Reiki attunement kinds of things. But it's all, in my book, it's kind of the same thing. And actually, I showed the healing touch people techniques for getting rid of headaches that I'd come up with. So it's all universal. The Bible, actually, I'm designing one of the first, I hope to be designing. I'm rewriting my manual. We have, in Louisiana, where I come from, we have the largest maximum security prison in the country, 6,000 inmates in the prison. And I visited it recently, and they have a theological seminary in the prison. And I did the technique on 3 of the ordained pastors who are lifers. They will not be paroled. In Louisiana, often you get life in prison without parole. And so they will be in prison their whole lives, but they have a missionary system where pastors ordained in that prison can actually go to other prisons. So we're looking at possibly doing a training program to teach them to do this with each other. Dostoevsky said, you want to see how civilized a culture is, then enter its prisons. And they're not doing a lot of therapy in those places. And they have time on their hands for reframing. So we could do an awful lot of karmic and energetic clearing with time on their hands. So my goal always has been to get into the prison system. So one of the people I just trained became one of the head chaplains at the top prison in the country. So go figure how that takes place, right? But I'm excited about it, and I'll do it. I'll train them for free without any questions about that. So, yeah, so a little bit, yeah. So you could do Reiki training. They do training here in Chicago. Reiki, healing touch, Qigong, Shiatsu. It's very similar kinds of things in many respects.
I have depression and anxiety, and I'm in touch with my feelings, and I'm on medicine right now, which helps a lot. But I don't know if I feel like pain in my body, and I'm not good at visualization and all that. So would there be hope for me?
Yes, 2 things. The greatest scandal of the last 1,000 years is that most depression is clearly memory-based. And when I work with you and scan you, I'm like, if I had that trauma history, I'd be depressed. You know, if I had these things happen to me, I'd be depressed. They've talked to you about the memories in the 5% more rational mind. They have not talked to your memories. What David Grove found with the T-1 first breakthrough is if you don't talk to the memory, access it, and prove safety, it will come back and trigger the next time you access a fragment. Most depression is build up, situational. There are books written that most depression is clearly situational. But the biggest scandal, the therapists, we were trained to do rational emotive, talk to your conscious rational mind. We did not know how to talk correctly, which is what I tried to develop. Talk to the subconscious. But you know, one of the weird things about this is Sigmund Freud said you have to go back to certain traumatic events if they have a determining quality or traumatic power over your life. And guess what? He was a neurologist and did massage or body work on his patients to help them remember. He went to the body. He was on the right track. But the truth, most depression is in fact situational. The second piece with the colors is when you reach a certain point in your trauma history and you said, I can't handle what these people are doing and how they're doing it. I can't handle the emotional pain. You turn down your color perception. You start dropping it proportionate to the overwhelm. If I asked you how young are you when you got overwhelmed in that family and felt like you had to turn down your emotional pain level, you probably come up with a number if you think about it, or a general range when you had to turn it down. When you did that, you lost some of your color perception. So the first thing we do is create enough safety for you to go back and enhance safe scene advanced levels. I teach you how to create a safe scene. You have protection, you have angels, guides, whatever you believe in, bring it in. It's under your control. It locks from the inside. You know, it's a big house. It has lots of air. You can bring in drones and protection if you need it. You can make it very elaborate, but make yourself safe. I sleep sometimes in my internal safe place. Kind of thing calms me down, you know. But the ability to see color and access emotion is impeded by trauma at an early enough age that you just can't watch anymore and see what's going on. It's too painful if you're energy sensitive, which they found most alcoholics were more sensitive than the average population. That's why they're numbing out, okay? Same thing with depression. You check, a lot of people with the most severe depression are also very energy and emotionally sensitive. Okay, well, of course you're overwhelmed by that. And thank God for the antidepressants and the medications that helped us survive. But except for benzodiazepines, Xanax, Klonopin, Valium, Ativan, those drugs mess with memory access and reframing. They actually measured the brain waves and how slow your brain waves get, so we can't reframe. If you're on a group of drugs like that, sometimes you have to get off to something else. You know, but the antidepressants generally don't interfere with this. It boosts you enough to have hope and to give the courage that we can find the memories and systematically reframe them. Level 1s and level 2s. So yes, most depression is situational. I wouldn't worry about that. When I put my hand on your back, I've rarely had a person not be able to visualize. When you turn up the light in the closet and we make you safe, Once you're safe, your subconscious wants to heal. And I don't do the technique. I plug you in and teach you to do it on yourself. So you're really taking yourself out of the past. It's less therapist dependent. But if you're really depressed and hopeless and sad, sometimes the therapist represents that part of you until you can pick that up and do it yourself. And we guide you through that. Okay? I have 22 practitioners here in Chicago doing this technique. It's a city with the most practitioners doing this kind of work. Other questions?
There's a question from someone watching through the internet. What kind of trauma have you found that produced the effect of asthma?
Actually, it's interesting because the head of a national trauma center, I did 2 sessions with him, and he called me a week later and said, I have a double-blind study set up with the VA because I did a session with you and my asthma is gone. Sometimes any kind of respiratory distress can in fact be, we hold the breath when we're traumatized. Some asthma isn't asthma. I had one woman, I worked on a nun once actually, who said, I have asthma. When do you have asthma? When I go over bridges. I was like, okay, that's not asthma. So if you have specific asthma associations or triggers, I'm going to look for the memory triggers. Now, if you had asthma as a child and came close to death and were panicked, you can actually have an asthma condition, but I also look for the PTSD from the medical condition. That's what's happening with migraines. Most migraines are traumatic relives of the original. 85, 95%, I find reduction or resolution when we reframe the original and the others that reinforced it. Same thing with panic attacks, shortness of breath. Asthma, there are multiple causes. We've had people that were born premature that about lung development. The asthma has to do with your lung development. There are many causes, so I won't say there's a general fix for asthma, but I would check and see. If you remember your first asthma attack, when I did this with the gentleman, the head of this trauma center in Florida, when I reframed his original asthma attack, he said, my asthma symptoms are gone. I'm not having these asthma symptoms. And they called me he said, you just have to turn your technique over to me in the university at this point. So they wanted to take over to do research. We couldn't quite do that. It's an intellectual property rights issue. But his asthma subsided. It was not there. So is it real asthma or are you reliving asthma? That's the first thing you want to answer. Do I actually have an asthma condition? Or is it possible? People are given migraines regularly. I reframe. If I feel it when I scan you, part of it is memory-based. Now, you may still have an asthma condition, or it might have been you were traumatized when you had an asthma attack and you're reliving the original. Some of it is that. Years ago, I did a presentation for the Jewish National Research Medical Center, Finding a Cure for Asthma. And I did a presentation for some of those folks, and I talked about some of it is actual asthma, which needs medical care and treatment. Some of it is traumatic relive of an asthma attack, and some of it is the shortness of breath created by an abuse event or a series of memories, and it's being labeled asthma, and you're reliving it, but it's actually a symptom of a post-traumatic event of some sort. And so we need to relive that. Now, I don't know that until we work with your body with that. So if, in answer to your question, those are all possibilities. But I'd say if you remember the first asthma attack, first migraine, first panic attack, same thing. When you reframe the first, a lot of times it drops significantly. If it's dropping, it's not either or anymore like asthma or trauma. It's kind of like the asthma after a while when people get panicked and don't know how to help you, you now have a trauma because people are there and they can't help you, assist you. You get frightened. That's a PTSD reaction to the asthma. So I think often we have both. So you always want to reframe and say, hey, I'm okay now, even if I do have some asthma. I've survived these events. Reframe the worst asthma attacks. You could very well reduce the condition significantly.
Can non-physical trauma cause physical pain?
Sure. Emotional trauma accumulating over a period of time can certainly become physical in the body. The body is designed to do that in a way. I'm trying to think if there would be a good example about that. The metaphor for some people when it comes up feels very physical, very real. Yes, like heartbreak. 5 years ago, I found 2 meridians over the heart that actually store relationship history. The Bible was correct. The heart is the seat of decision making. And the broken heart is there because it's 60 to as much sometimes as 5,000 times stronger than your brain signal. They measured it. And what you store is your definition of love. People would say, do I have all emotionally unavailable men tattooed on my forehead? Do I have all women needing rescuing? I'm like, no, I'm sorry, it's much worse. What do you mean? It's over your heart, and it's 60 times stronger than your brain. So if you had an alcoholic father and a depressed narcissistic mother, what do you have the uncanny ability? We had an Asperger's father, really, pretty much. I mean, he didn't show affection. He'd drive for 2 hours, get somewhere and get nervous and say, allons, let's go home. Cajun French, go home. Let's say, you crazy? We drove for 2 hours. We're going to stay for 2 hours with relatives and then maybe go home. So she regulated him, normalized him. But he didn't ever do feelings. So we ended all marrying alcoholics or alcoholic systems or people that didn't do feelings very well or went the silent treatment, like the Asperger's thing. But some recovered family members. Some did really well. Others died. Some in-laws died of their alcoholism. I became a Catholic priest. The pastor was alcoholic, and the bishop died of cirrhosis of the liver at the time. So I didn't know the religious system could be dysfunctional. We've all gotten past that now, right? We know religious systems can have unhealthy people in them. My goal, and I've done a lot of work with systems, religious and otherwise, is, we're all people with traumas. In our current state of evolution, we have 7.9 million years of trauma accumulation without a whole lot of resolution on this planet. But most of my coordinators in major cities are people, when they did their memory work, their autoimmune disorders were considered in remission. Fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, irritable bowel. Freaked out one young man, one of my therapists here in Chicago, did work with him, and all the memories are in his gut. By the end of the session, his irritable bowel pain was gone and was away for weeks. He didn't come back. She doesn't know if it ever came back again, but it freaked him out because you have to realign your life when you no longer have the symptoms. Some people with disability, it's a little confusing. It's like, well, what if it were to come back and I'm not on disability because I'm now functional? It's one of our hardest percentages to treat. But really, wouldn't you just want a full life again? So we're working on getting there. We want to give you as much fullness of life, embrace life safely, without illness. You can do a lot on your own. So, but some things, if you leave something in your body for so many 7-year cycles, I believe it often starts to become physical to get your attention. Chris Griscom, kind of an eclectic, she did the Out on a Limb, Shirley MacLaine work back in New Mexico decades ago, kind of an unusual healer. She had a phrase in one of her books, and she said, the body is cosmic teacher, will speak louder and louder until it gets your attention. So if it comes up mentally or emotionally and you don't pay attention to it, it'll start to manifest as a little issue. And then it'll get louder, then maybe as an illness or a symptom. And it can actually become quite serious if we don't pay attention to it. So I think there's an amplification that goes on over 7-year cycles if we don't pay attention to it.
You mentioned something about drawing the pain. Is it possible to I'm an artist, so could you look at an artist's sketchbook or artwork from the past and interpret their trauma or pain? I mean, the colors they use
that's a fascinating subject because the colors the artists use often are depicting, and your colors change. I used to not wear bright colors. I was priest, black. I look good in black. Let's stay with it. I'm just kidding. But as I cleared my traumas, I wear every bright color. In fact, I'm looking at a purple shirt right now. I'm thinking about it. But bright colors. We can wear bright reds. I wear reds now, and things of that sort. So as you embrace your colors, I've had people, when I reframe a memory, they ran blue through their body, opened their eyes and said, oh, look, you painted your office blue since I was here. I was like, the office has always been blue. But with this blocked, you couldn't see the blue. We change our internal quantum perception when we heal our memories. We open to new realities. But yes, so I had a breast cancer patient who didn't have a chance to work with me. Put her hand over. She wrote an email to myself and the general manager at Miraval after she left. Didn't have time to work with me. She says, I know my colors. I think I know the memory. She had a tumor over her breast. By the way, which breast usually gets the cancer? Left, over the heart. Okay, around the heart area, 2 meridians. She had a tumor on her breast. She was scheduled for a lumpectomy. She put her hand over the site, said, I think I know the issue and I know the colors. She ran her colors through her body 2-3 times a day for the next 2 weeks. When they went in to do the lumpectomy, the doctor said, she sent us the email. She said, I don't know what you did, but I will do a PET scan. But as far as I can tell, there's nothing for us to operate on here anymore. It's not there. So she said, thank you. I believed I healed myself because I identified the issue, ran my colors through. Not all cancers or illnesses are memory-based. Some are genetic. People in Desert Storm came back with every allergy under the sun. They were exposed to some kind of chemical toxin agent of some sort. We know that. The military finally admitted that. There were toxins, there were chemical exposures, there were genetic predispositions. But I'm training some cell biologists now, and what they're saying is it takes an event often to activate the you might have the BRCA gene or whatever, but it takes often an activation of the mitochondria through an event for the gene to express itself. Our hope is to be able to find a way to see the reversal, that if we heal the traumas and clear the traumas, then these genes might stop expressing themselves and in fact go into remission. And just because you have a predisposition doesn't mean you have to get sick. Doesn't mean you have to get ill. And we are finding that's the case. They call them sliders affectionately. Whatever it is that activates the mitochondria around the cell. So we're trying to find what will deactivate that. And I believe color, safety, meditation, yoga, breathing, there are people who don't get sick with these genetic predispositions. There's a way to reverse that. There was a question that you had also.
I would like to ask how the techniques you're talking about can affect healing stuttering.
That's a good question. The stuttering thing, I don't know if I've worked enough with stutterers to find out, but I have heard different situations where there's been an assertive male figure that transmitted love. I know things like bedwetting. We've found some things about that. There are some patterns, not always, but there's some patterns. But with the stuttering thing, it appears to be some kind of and I had a brother that was a stutterer. He eventually, because it was a brain damage type thing, used an auditory device, which they can click and stop the stuttering. So he used that. But I've also heard of cases where then somebody was very assertive, created love for that individual, and reestablished a really, I think I've seen tics reduced, in some cases stop with this technique. Because, it's a moment of freezing when you scream and yell and shock. It looks like a Tourette's kind of a reaction sometimes. That has reduced in some cases. The stuttering thing, I just can't tell you enough about because I don't have enough research data. But I've had people tell me that when they reframed with the parent, actually they went into a memory and they stuttered in the memory. When they reframed and came out of the memory, they weren't stuttering anymore, but they hadn't stuttered in years.
It affects, the technique may affect stuttering.
It might very well. It affects tics. So if it is if it is a pathology that is trauma-based and you can find the trigger mechanism, I would not be surprised to find that it would have an effectiveness.
In Switzerland, actually, I discussed with the CERN physicist about that because his French-speaking part is hidden, like only speaks German. It's sort of like a memory dysfunctional. Actually, there's Alexander techniques. I don't know, in the U.S.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
You may want to check that. It's something like a memory pain and trauma caused.
Thank you very much.
I would not, most things, if you have a bad experience that caused something, reframe it using this technique. Reframe it and create safety. You're not changing your history. You're taking yourself out of the stuck, frozen physiology of that moment. I would wager to say a huge percentage of our aches, pains, migraines, panic attacks, depression certainly is relives of certain depressing, traumatic, overwhelming memories. And we underestimated completely how accurately we pause consciousness, which is a miracle, and can take a picture. Only we didn't realize when we took the picture, we were designed, you and I were protecting ourselves as a species before we had language. We were freezing consciousness in our pre-verbal evolutionary states, which means animals have adrenals. We were protected from our very natures to freeze and pause consciousness. And if it's true that we evolved into speech, we were already freezing. We probably, because we could freeze consciousness, it gave us the time and the space we needed to evolve until we had language. So it may be, I believe both historically, personally, that trauma precedes language, precedes rational and moral development. So I don't judge people about their traumas. We just need to do more healing work and clear these things out and clear the traumas, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I'm hopeful. I was excited to find out. I was shocked when I did a few Tourette's folks and found that a lot of their tics. A guidance counselor had a young man that was being tormented by his classmates, and he took him aside, did the technique, found the original moment when he had the tic, reframed it, and the tic stopped. The kids couldn't tease him about what wasn't there anymore. So some of it is memory-based. I'm always excited. I just say, just give it a chance. I don't know. Maybe you have the one thing that isn't memory-based. But to reframe it using your colors is free. It takes very little time. We can do this on ourselves. There is a lot. The naturopathic physicians believe if you were to clear all of your traumas and clear all of your nerve centers and raise them to white light, the viral load of your body, which outnumbers T cells normally to 20 to 1, would probably not be able to harm you. I am more resistant to viruses than I ever was. I don't get colds as much. I had 9 warts on this fingers when I started in 92. Touch one, it went away in a week. Touch one, it went away in a week. That's how I got interested in the physical healing part. Then I found out from an aunt who was a nun, oh yeah, Uncle Roman, Bruley, Louisiana, used to heal people's warts years ago. I'm like, it's in the family thing. We had some reputation about that. But it got me interested in energy, so I do warts for free at the end of a session, you know. That kind of, it's not an issue. A couple of other little, molluscum, a couple of bacterial skin conditions and things, so that's for free at the end of a session. But anyway, so thank you for your time and attention. Thanks to the Theosophical Society for having me.